everyone, welcome back to my channel, Teresa's Crafty Cabana. Today I'm going to show you a Gelli print that I'm going to turn into a postcard. Over on the Makers of Mixed Media Art and Artists page, they have the color combo for July. It's pistachio, royal purple, and neutral gray. You can also include a black, a white, and a metallic. So I used golden paints for my black, white, and iridescent gold. I'm going to start with a layer of gray and pistachio to make kind of like an ombre background. And both of these colors, the Americana, they're a more opaque color. They almost remind me of chalk paints. They cover really nicely. If you make the layer thin enough, it does start to do the bubbling. I forget what it's called, cracking look. So I wanted an even coat, but I didn't mind that it was crackling a little bit. It gives it some natural texture. So I'd recently gone to Germany and I picked up this stencil from a German Dollar Tree called Teddy, and it's a €1, which technically is cheaper than Dollar Tree because the conversion rate is $1.07. So in dollars, I paid $1.07 for this stencil, and I thought it was really cute with the bumblebee and the flowers kind of mixed together to create this really interesting design. I thought it was beautiful, actually. So I removed the paint with my brayer, and that way I had a place to put some color in between the stencil opening. I decided to apply it with a sponge dabber because I wanted to kind of be a little more precise, and if I brayered it on, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get the exact areas where I wanted the color. So I'm using the royal purple for the flower petals, and then I realized that the purple is not opaque. The purple is actually more transparent than my other two colors I was using. The golden carbon black is a nice opaque color though. At the end of the video, I have some images or photos from when I went to Germany if you're interested to see that. I put a little bit of the black where the leaves go, and of course over the bumblebee black areas. Then I liked kind of what was happening with the flowers, so I kind of did a little bit of black around the edges of the flowers just to give it a little more dimension. And I used the other side of my sponge to put some of the pistachio green on the wings. Once I got to the end here, I realized I wanted to mix some of that purple in with the green. Again, just to give it, because you know, wings kind of have like different colors in them. Put a little bit in the centers, and then I removed my stencil. I thought it turned out so beautiful. I did let this layer dry completely, and then I put this is a stencil from PM Artist Studio. It's the Poetic Script, Dream Big Poetic Script. And then I put some white titanium over the back of this. I was gonna concentrate only on the edges, but I put enough paint that I covered basically the whole background with this. So real quick, while I was in Germany, we went there because my sister lives there and it was her birthday, so it was kind of like a mini reunion, and we got to go on a road trip and saw a couple of castles and really cool architecture. So yeah, stay tuned to the end and I'll share a little more about my trip. And then I had this little honeycomb. This is actually for polymer clay, just a little stamp or cutout. And I just used that to make an impression right over the stencil. I didn't want to have my goal wasn't to get the whole impression, it was just to get parts, like some of the lines to show through. And this is tricky with this stencil, it's very delicate. It can break easily. So I was trying to pull this off without getting it to tear anywhere. Okay, and then I had a little bit of some area that had too much paint, so I'm just using, this is from an oranges bag. And I'm just gonna remove some of the paint with this texture. I'm just trying to reveal the plate a little bit more because I wanted to have the next layer show through. I had still some wet paint on the plate, so I used these little bubbles bubble wrap for the impression over this, and then I let this layer dry completely and I put some iridescent gold over the top. This is a really pretty gold. Of course it's transparent, but it really picks up on the light very nicely. So I let this be my final layer, and I'm using this mixed media paper. It's from a book. It's actually like a journal, and it takes wet and dry media really well. It's a 5.5 by 8.5 inch page. There's 60 pages in this little book, and it's 110 pounds. And I knew I wanted to cut it up to turn it into a postcard, so I liked the weight of it. And this is what my cute little bee is looking like. Of course, I'm going to dress it up a little bit and cut it to size. I'm just using my ruler to measure out where the 4 inches is going to be and then where the 6 inches is going to be, so I know how much of my design will show through and what parts I don't mind cutting off. Then I had some stamps. These are kind of like postage stamps, postcard stamps, and there's another challenge going on in the Makers of Mixed Media Art and Artist page. It's Postcard Play by Carrie Griffiths and his channel. And what it is whatever day you're working on the postcard, you put the day of the month somewhere on the postcard. So I had this stamp that had number 11 and then it had a 20, but I didn't want the 20 in there because I was making this on July 11th. So that's where I'm incorporating my number 11 on the postcard. So I thought that worked out perfectly. And then I used some more of my stamps from this set to kind of make this look a little more postagey by just stamping some of these on. And it kind of worked out. These little stamps, I had just gotten them from Amazon. I'll link them below. But a couple of them said like Berlin, Germany. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool because this bee came from Germany. And so I kind of stamped off on my brayer off sheet first so that I had a 2nd generation and a 3rd generation. I really just wanted these stamps to look like they were kind of in the background as like a part of the design, but I didn't want them to be, too bold. So 2nd and 3rd generation I thought looked pretty good for these. Here was another one that said Berlin, Germany. So that was pretty cool. This one said Schiphol. I'm not saying that right. Schiphol. Anyway, that's in Amsterdam, and I went through that airport, so I thought that was pretty cool. Now this needed a little bit of a border. I felt like it was kind of not finished looking. So I just took some washi tape and I just eyeballed this, but I'm just measuring to have a little bit of a border here. I'm going to use my purple on the top and the bottom. And I'm just going to use a paintbrush to apply it this time. And remember, this purple is actually transparent, so that stamping is going to show through from this purple. I kind of wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I kept going over it, but the transparency, it just wasn't going to get any darker than this. Which was fine. It looks good like that, and it doesn't lose any of the stamping in the design. And I just used the other side of this tape for the bottom part. And I did the same thing, kind of just eyeballed where my line was going to go. And then at this point, I knew I wanted to do something on the sides, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue with the purple. I did feel like the green wasn't very prevalent on here. You can mostly only see it in the the wings, but I decided to use the green on the edges to tie the green into the postcard. I'm just starting out with a new piece of washi tape because I'm changing colors. I did let that paint dry on the 2 strips first. And this green is opaque, so it's actually going to cover right over that purple. And I'll just flip it and do the same on the other side. Okay, so this is what it's looking like with the border. I did feel like it still needed a little something, so I grabbed a gold paint pen, and this is just a scrap piece that I had when I cut my postcard size down. So I'm just going to use that to help me make a straight line. So I'm lining it up right next to the paint strip or paint stripe. And then I'm just going to draw this gold line all the way around the postcard. And then I wanted to separate the gold from the colorful strips, the edges. So I used this black painter's paint, and it's actually an ultra fine tip. So it was really easy to just draw a line right in between that paint and the gold. This one I just eyeballed it, I didn't measure. And at this point, I took my scrap piece of paper again. I thought that the purple part needed a little something extra, and so I just went ahead and made some diagonal lines with my paint marker. And I did that on the top and on the bottom. And it didn't quite look finished to me, so I decided to make it look a little more postagey, and I colored in with the black every other little spot, so I had these kind of like stripes on the top and the bottom. I thought that really made it look a little more complete. Plus, I know it's usually red and blue, but I thought that that definitely gave it more of a postal look. The flower centers were getting a little lost, so I used my black pen to draw a circle and then put some dots in the center. And after I'd done this, it almost made the centers pop a little too much. And I didn't want to go and trace around the flowers because I really liked how the flowers looked. So I used this white gel pen to create the little veins in the wings for the bee. I'm just eyeballing and not being really precise on what I'm doing here. It doesn't show a lot, but it does look like just some extra detail work. So it didn't really matter how my lines looked. It almost just made it look like crackling. And I used my white gel pen after I saw that it was just a light amount of white that it added. I just traced over the black on these flower centers just to tone down that black and not make it as harsh. And I think that helped bring it back, tie it back in with the background. So this is the outside of my postcard, which I think is complete, and I love how it turned out. I think it looks so cool. I love this stencil and just the layers, the colors of the month of July. I love the color combo. It's really beautiful together. And on the back side of it, because this is a postcard, I did have with my stamp set a stamp that said postcard on it. So I decided to go ahead and stamp that on the back. I'm just using my Tim Holtz stamping platform. I don't really have a stamping block big enough for this stamp set or this size stamp. So this is what I have to use. Plus it helps because you'll see the first time that I stamped it, it didn't even stamp all the way. So this is really helpful. So I can stamp it as many times as I need to get just the right impression. And here you can see this is a much better impression now. I love the font on this. I think it's so fun. So here's the front again with some of the gold details, and then the back with it just postcard and a spot for me to write a message. And I just love how this turned out. I think it turned out so cute. I'm really excited I got to pick up something from Germany to be able to use on my Gelli plate. I looked through their other stencils and they weren't ones that I really was interested in. This was the only one that caught my eye. So a little bit about my trip, if you're interested. I went to Hamburg, Germany initially, where my sister lives. This is her garden. She had a really cute little garden birthday party. And this was like the only sunny day while we were there. Although there was, towards the end of the trip, this was kind of the last thing we did was went to this castle. The sun came out again on the last day. The rest of the days, this was in Bavaria. They were mostly gloomy, rainy, cold days. It was like 55 degrees at night, 64 in the day. So not too warm, but the architecture, everything, it was so beautiful. We had some pretzels and ice cream. Got to hear some of the church towers going off. So hiked to castles. I got to hug a castle. So it was just so much fun spending time with my family. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and happy crafting.